Okay, so we're here for the last installments of our journey through the mind of Mencius, where we read about halfway through section 7A, and I don't recall the exact part that we stopped at. I think it was 7A.2 something. Does somebody remember?
22. Yes, I remember 22.
Okay. Here we are. Okay. So like usual, we'll probably have maybe two people overall take turns reading, and somebody else, maybe me, will just read these side notes occasionally. So who would like to read today?
Me.
Okay. Will the elf who just spoke read?
What's the page?
Yeah.
Oh, 131?
127.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I have to make the text bigger here? Or,
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Mencius said, Bo Yi fled from Chou and dwelt on the northern seacoast. When he heard that King Wen had arisen, he stirred, saying, "Why not return to follow him? I have heard that this lord of the west takes good care of the aged." Tai Gong fled from Zhou and dwelt on the eastern seacoast. When he heard that King Wen had arisen, he stirred, saying, "Why not return to follow him? I have heard that this lord of the west takes good care of the aged." When there is one who takes good care of the aged, humane men regard him as a refuge to return to. A homestead of 5 mu with mulberry trees planted beneath the wall and a wife to nurture the silkworms is adequate to clothe the aged in silk. The aged. With 5 hens, 2 sows, and timely mating, the aged will not lack for meat. With 100 mu of field land and a husband to plow it, a family with 8 mouths can be free from hunger. As for saying that the Lord of the West took good care of the aged, he laid out the fields and the homesteads, taught his people to care for mulberry trees and raise livestock, and to guide their wives in caring for the aged. At the age of 50, one cannot keep warm without silk to wear. At the age of 70, one cannot eat one's fill without meat. When one cannot keep warm or eat one's fill, it is called starving of cold. There were no elders who starved of cold among the King Wen's people. That is what the saying means. Mencius said, "If a ruler keeps the fields in order and tax rates low, the people will become wealthy. If food is consumed in a timely way and expenditures are in accord with ritual, resources will be more than sufficient. Water and fire are absolute necessities of life. But if you knock on someone's door in the evening to ask for some, you will never meet with a refusal because they are abundant." When a sage rules the world, he ensures that beans and grain will be as plentiful as water and fire. And whenever have there been inhumane people when that has been the case? Mencius said, "Confucius climbed East Mountain and felt that Lu was small, but when he climbed Mount Tai, he felt the world was small. One who has looked upon the sea finds other waters difficult to compare with it. One who has roamed within the gates of a sage finds other teachings hard to compare with his. There is an art to viewing water. Observe the waves. The light of the sun and moon always reflect upon them. The nature of flowing water is that it does not move forward until it has filled each depression in the ground. The nature of the Junzi, who sits his heart upon the Tao, is that until he has mastered each stage, he does not penetrate through." Is it Junzi or Junzi?
Zhongzi.
Junzi.
Yeah, when you see the Z, I imagine it's DZ. Okay, for an English speaker, if you see DZ, he wouldn't pronounce Z, okay, and not Z, because the ZI has to be imagined at DZ.
Here on the side here, the foot or the side note says both mountains are in Shandong. Mount Tai, one of China's most sacred peaks, is the tallest point in the region. This passage appears to string three aphorisms with separate points together, though all may concern water metaphors for the art of learning. And this idea that the nature of the Junzi who sets his heart upon the Tao is that he has mastered each, until he has mastered each stage, he does not penetrate through. I get that's a good lesson to keep that in mind. We often skip steps when we're trying to race to learn something, and we don't take the time to fully master one stage before building on an improper foundation our next stage. And the more you build, the weaker the structure gets. And I think that's how I'm reading that.
Absolutely. And here I would like to make a rapprochement with the Platonic dialogues, okay? Because once again, the Platonic dialogues is offering us a map going through different stages of perception of reality. And the first stage being acacia, meaning the shadows. And after the shadows, you have pistis, which is conventional truth. And after conventional truth, you have dianoia, which is the first stage of knowledge, or episteme in Greek, okay? As you know, in Platonic dialogues, you have a dividing lines between doxa, opinion, and episteme, knowledge. In Confucian theory, in paragraph 4 of chapter 2, acacia would be at 15, I set my heart to study. At 30, I at 40, I'm no more confused, but at 30, I took my stand in society. That would correspond more or less to acacia. And when I'm no more confused, is the beginning of dianoia, okay? When you have the beginning of mathematical forms. And after that, in Platonic dialogues, you have dialecticon, okay? Which would correspond to at 50 years old, I am capable to hear the whim of heaven. And at 60, I'm capable to hear the whim of heaven without complaining. And in the Platonic dialogues would be the door to eidos, the eternal forms. And there, at 70, I'm capable to do what I want without infringing the universal law according to Confucius. And for Plato, it's the form of the good and of truth, okay? And if you remember chapter 7 of the Republic, the last form, truth, you cannot, you have to become truth, okay? So that's why at 70, according to Confucius, I'm capable to do what I want without infringing the universal law. And that is not possible as long as you are separated from that universal law that Plato would call the son of the absolute, which is the last form that he also called truth, aletheia, or more poetically, the son of the absolute, because absolute is from Latin absolutus, and it means complete, okay? So what is complete is the truth with a capital T.
Beautiful.
And those are precisely, more technically speaking, if I may say so, the meaning of the sentence, the nature of the Junzi, which is the gentleman who sets his heart on the Tao, is that until he has mastered each stage, he does not penetrate through.
And I think it's important to keep always in mind too that, yeah, he's speaking these intertwined with lessons and insights on good governance, the political application of these moral insights and principles regarding how do you actually cultivate happiness and health in society as a ruler, what types of laws are good laws versus destructive ones which hurt people.
Exactly, and exactly. I'm sorry to interrupt you again, because Plato found the exact words for each stage, okay? Meaning that as long that you are not in episteme, as long as that you are not in knowledge, if you are in a ruling position, you wouldn't be motivated by the things that come from sense perception. Okay, if you remember, the democratic man is motivated by lex talionis, eye for eye, tooth tooth, or by tribal affinities, and the plutocratic man would be motivated by profits. Okay, so your epistemological level is at Acacia, you wouldn't be necessarily be motivated by lex talionis or by tribal affinities or by profits. Okay, so the educational program for the people in general, and especially for the rulers because they have more responsibilities, is precisely to uplift the epistemological level to episteme, to knowledge, meaning at least Dianoa would correspond politically to the democratic man, meaning the man motivated by honor and justice, which is a mum. And it's even better if he can go to dialecticon or eidos, because he would be an aristocratic man motivated by creativity, discovery, and inventivity. And even better, if he's at the absolute form of truth, he would be a philosopher king motivated by the creation of virtuous man, by the right education. And he would be capable to create the right education.
Great. Anyone
Can I
else?
just get Quan to remind us what I think every time you mentioned those at 15, I was like this, at 30, that was from Confucius?
Yes, it's from the Analects, or in Chinese, the Lun Yu, Lunyu, or Analects, which is the English translation. And the word Analects is from Greek analekton, meaning a compilation of texts, okay? Because Lun Yu's exactly means selected sayings, and selected sayings in Greek is analekton, or Analects in English, if you prefer. And it's from the fourth paragraph of the second chapter.
Very precise. I admire your rigor.
Well, that's something that everyone who had a classical Chinese education know by heart.
Fourth paragraph, second chapter, or something like that?
Exactly.
All right, I'll have to find that myself.
Mencius said, "The man who rises at cockcrow and sets off to do good all day is a follower of the sage king Shun. The man who rises at cockcrow and sets off to pursue profit all day is a follower of Ji. If you wish to know the difference between Shun and Ji, there is nothing but this: the difference between good and profit."
You see, between good and profit, between knowledge and opinion.
And G, we're reminded, is the bandit encountered in 3B10.
Mencius said, Yang Tzu's motto is act for oneself. If he could profit the world by plucking out a single hair, he would not do it. For Mo Tzu, the motto is universal love. If it would profit the world, he would scratch his head bald and walk his heels off. Zemo advocates holding to a middle course. Holding to the middle comes near to it, but if you insist on holding to the middle without considering the balance of circumstances, it is really no different from grasping one extreme. What is detestable about grasping one extreme is that it cuts down the Tao, raising up a single part and casting off hundreds. Side.
Yeah, sorry. On Yang Zi and Mozi, compare 3B9. I forget what that was. The identity of Zemo is unknown and much debated. So Zemo on the first surface here struck me as somebody who is uber noble, and super self-sacrificing compared to the first character here of Mozi. No, sorry, not Mozi. Sorry, yeah.
Yangzu.
Yeah, sorry. Mozi seemed like the guy who was uber noble and super sacrificing. And yeah, Yangzi is obviously a Hobbesian schmuck,
Yes,
who's selfish.
exactly.
Now, Zemo didn't seem as noble as Mozi for his unwillingness to self-sacrifice as much, but rather find some path between this selfishness versus universal love. But the lesson in this paragraph seems to be that Zemo actually is the wiser of the three. Am I wrong in interpreting it that way? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah. No, you're quite right, because Mozi, once again, is the guy of the 5th century BCE, famous for his universal love concept. The problem, once again, is that he believed very much on the institution and the organization, but he didn't stress enough the educational aspect, okay? Because if you don't create an educational program to create virtuous man, institutions are nothing, because institutions need virtuous men to maintain them, okay? So what is fundamental is not the institution. What is fundamental are the virtuous men, or the educational program creating them.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So if you get just too much into the state of love and all of these things without creating anything durable, it's going to be easily taken. It'll just be washed away, I guess, like water coming over a sandcastle. So you have to, if you're going to create something actually strong, you have to be able to be a bit more scrutinizing with your mind.
Exactly, and would like to repeat the image that would make you remember that easily. It's the famous Chinese hexagram. Okay, you have 3 lines, which is the lower trigram, and the 3 upper lines, which is the per trigram. Okay, you have on the lower trigram the natural tendency if you don't have the education. Okay, on the first line of the lower trigram is precisely the democratic man. Okay, the man motivated by tribal affinities, which is only normal, and by lex talionis. Okay, tooth for tooth, eye for eye. Okay, and the second line of the lower trigram is the man motivated by profit. He's a bit better than the democratic man, because he's the hypocrite, if you want. Okay, the hypocrite is capable to smile to his enemy if he thinks that it's in his advantage to smile to his enemy. Okay, so he has a better self-control than the democratic man. Okay, so in terms of my development, the plutocratic man is higher than the democratic man. Okay, because he knows a certain level of self-control. And the upper category for the lower trigram is democratic man, but the inchoate democratic man, or the beginner democratic man. When you call Thomas Hobbes, I don't know, you call him a bastard or something like that.
Schmuck.
He's not a schmuck. Yeah, a schmuck. Well, he's not. He's a schmuck for the upper trigram, but he's the best for the lower trigram. Okay, because the beginner democratic man, he's motivated by the appearance of justice. He knows that to maintain a society state, you need at least to give a certain appearance of justice to the people. Okay, if you remember the Leviathan, I think that Thomas Hobbes wrote something like, you have to give to the state the power of legitimate violence, because without that legitimate violence, it would be the law of the jungle, right? So that's the beginning of the beginner democratic man, motivated by maintaining the appearance of justice, because he knows that that appearance is important. If not, it would be the law of the jungle. So the schmuck is at the top of the logo trigram. And now we go into what the philosophers want to create virtuous man, and virtuous men are the man in the upper trigram, meaning the true democratic man motivated by justice and honor, the aristocratic man motivated by creativity and inventivity and discovery, and finally the philosophical man motivated by the creation of virtuous man by the right education.
Mm-hmm. Which is, yeah, is the hypothesizing of the higher hypothesis level, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he's inspired by, because he experienced the form of truth, goodness, and beauty. Okay, because truth is the philosophical man. Goodness is the aristocratic man, agape, because goodness not only in the ordinary sense of benevolence, but being capable to enjoy that deep joy coming from creation and creativity and inventivity and discovery. And the democratic man is beauty, justice. Okay, so that's dialecticon and eidos. Okay, and precisely a good educational program would make the people experience those eternal forms in reality, so they can embody that in social reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If not, if they did not experience it for real, at best they would be a beginner democratic man or a hypocrite, meaning a plutocratic man.
Mm-hmm. Right. And hence, Zimmo and his advocacy of the middle course was wiser.
Isn't the lesson he said, if you insist on holding to the middle without considering the balance of circumstances, it is no different from grasping one extreme.
Yeah, the
So
context.
yeah, so it's not just to pick the middle ground. You have to have the concept of the whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that Mo Tzu and Zuma, and here I think it's a coincidence, but Mo Tzu and Zuma is exactly the reverse. Okay, Mo Tzu, Zuma. They are I would say people with good intention, but not truly educated, because here again we have the same eternal problem. It's not good enough to have good intention. You have to be well intentioned and be prepared to be responsible, meaning you need to be really educated and having truly experienced by yourself the three eternal forms of truth, goodness, and beauty. Because if you did not have that deep and true experience, the woes of life, the unhappiness of life that wouldn't happen necessarily, wouldn't wash you away, and you wouldn't but not be useful to yourself and to others.
Yeah. Well, which is, I think, it's what Schiller touches on when he talks about the importance of an artist. A true artist was somebody who yearns for the eternal and is unbounded by temporal style, but yet lives in his time at the same time, and has to find creative ways of clothing these universal concepts in the style of the age that he lives in, but not be a subject or be mastered by the tastes of his age. So you're always thinking about how that doesn't mean he's compromising by just trying to be popular, but you still want your works to be able to take hold in the psyche of the world that you live in, or the culture that you live in. And I'm thinking in politics, it's the same thing. You have to be practical.
Oh, sorry,
you have to find practical expression of the ideals that you hold in your heart in the individual circumstances that you find yourself in as well. You can't just live in the clouds.
You're speaking of the third condition, okay? So to be really useful for yourself and for your people or for the rest of mankind, you need to be well intentioned. You need to have truly experienced the form of truth, goodness, and beauty, and you need to have some talents to transmit that. Okay, you need to be a good teacher. Okay, so you need those three things.
Mm-hmm.
Mencius said, any food will taste sweet to someone starving. Any drink will taste sweet to someone parched with thirst. This is because being deprived of normal food and drink has damaged their senses. It is not just in matters of the mouth and belly that this is so. The human heart can be damaged in this way. If a person can keep his heart undamaged by its starvation, then he will have no worry about being inferior to others. Mencius said, Liu Xia Hui would not compromise his integrity in order to be ranked among the 3 high ministers. Mencius said, the pursuit of a goal can be compared to digging a well. Even if you dig 9 fathoms deep, if you do not reach water, it is just an abandoned well.
It's pretty funny.
These would make good Hallmark cards. No, I'm joking.
No, I really do like that one. There's a little footnote here. Compare analects. Think of it as making a mountain. If one bucket full short of completion, I stop, then I've stopped.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how hard you work towards the goal. If you didn't reach the goal, it's not a matter of like how hard you tried. Is that what the lesson is?
Yes. Well, here, if you do not reach water, is it just an abandoned well? Okay. It's like the parable by Jesus, like the seeds that are thrown in the field, and some will grow and certain will not grow. Okay. So here, the fact that the seeds will grow into a big tree, here is if you reach the water or not. Okay. The water here being the forms, the eternal forms of truth, goodness, and beauty. Okay, so once again, let's not forget it's a text about the steps of the mind's development. If you don't reach, I would use the Greek terminology here. If you don't go through dianoia, dialecticon, and eidos, or theoria to be exact, okay, because eidos is the results, is the eternal forms, but the process through which you reach to eidos, truth, goodness, and beauty, dianoia, dialecticon, and theoria, which is a Greek word meaning contemplation. Okay, so you need to go back to the exercises of dianoia, dialecticon, and theoria till you reach to the eternal forms of truth, goodness, and beauty, which is the water here, or the seed that has grown into a big tree. Okay, 2 different metaphors for the same thing.
Mencius said, Yao and Xun took it as their natures. Tang and King Wu embodied it. The 5 hegemons borrowed it. If you borrow it for a long time and do not return it, who would know it was not yours?
Side note, compare with a previous section that said, if you wear the clothes of Yao, chant the words of Yao, and act the acts of Yao, you are simply Yao.
Gongxun Chao said, Yi Yin said, I will not
Wait.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. Are we here saying, like, is he getting at something that transcends our individual personalities? If we have a certain virtue that was exemplified by a great person, in this case, let's say Yao, that there is this continuity of Yao it's not like we lose our personalities, or we don't lose our individuality, but we express also that higher universal character that Yao exemplified. Is that what he's trying to get at?
Yes. Give me the permission to use again the hexagram to explain it. Okay. So I said that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 1, 2 is the personality. 3, 4 is the individuality, and 5, 6 is the universal self. Okay. So if you are a seed that has grown into a big tree, you don't die in your personality. Okay. If you did not educate yourself in order to be a big tree, or in order to reach the water in the well, okay, use a metaphor you like, you die in your personality, meaning your tribal affinities, your tribal identities given to you by your family and your tribe, right? If you have gone further to Dianoia, and you have done your thing in life, okay, you acquire what is called an individuality, okay, corresponding to Dianoia, that level of epistemological development, okay? And if you go further into dialecticon and theoria, and giving you the eternal forms of truth, goodness, and beauty, you would be in your universal self, okay? Imagine it like the sun, okay? If you die in your personality, it's only the outer shell of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
If you die in your individuality, it would be the middle of the sun. And if you die in the universal self, it would be the core of the sun. And of course, the core of the sun is the source for the middle of the sun and the surface of the sun.
Mm. Mm-hmm. It's nice.
So here I have the occasion to give a technical definition and operational definition of a virtuous man, okay? Because what is a virtuous man? It can be very vague, okay? A virtuous man is a man having his 3 envelopes: the personality, the individuality, and the universal self.
It's good.
And sorry, Yong Hong just sent me a message. Can you give me the 6-digit?
Yes.
She will pass later on if possible.
6-digit.
844578.
844578. Okay, thank you.
Gong Sun Chao said, Yi Yin said, I will not consort with one who is obdurate. He banished Tai Jia to Tong, and the people were very pleased. When Tai Jia became worthy and Yi Yin brought him back, the people were again pleased. If a worthy man were minister to a ruler who was unworthy, might he properly banish him in this way? Mencius said, if he had the integrity of Yi Yin, then he might. If he did not have the integrity of Yi Yin, then this would be usurpation.
Side note is after the death of Tang, the Shang founder Yi Yin stayed on as chief minister to his successors, of whom the problematic Taijia was one.
Gong Xun Chao said, the poetry says, he eats no food unearned. Why then does the Junzi accept food when he does not farm? Mencius said, when a Junzi dwells in a state, if the ruler employs him there, will be peace and plenty, respect and glory. The young men will be filial and honor elders, loyal and faithful. Could he eats no food unearned be better exemplified? Prince Dan asked, what is the task of a gentleman? Mencius said, to honor his ambition. What do you mean by honoring ambition? Simply humanity and righteousness. Killing a single innocent is inhumanity. Seizing what is not yours is unrighteous. Where is the gentleman's dwelling? It is in humanity. What is the gentleman's path? It is righteousness. To dwell in humanity and follow the right, the task of a great man is complete in this. Mencius said, everyone believes that Zhongzi is a man who, if it were not offered to him righteously, would refuse even the throne of Qi. But his righteousness is the type that turns away a basket of rice or a pot of gruel. If people had no sense of right greater than that, there would no longer be duties toward parents or between rulers and subjects, superiors and inferiors. Can we place trust in men in great matters of morality on the basis of minor virtues?
It says here, Zhongzi is the Chen Zhongzi of 3B10, a man of exaggerated Puritanism. When he says this is a type of guy who would turn away a basket of rice or gruel, that is to say, if it was offered unrighteously, he would like starve himself to death. Is that the type of character they're painting there?
Yeah, if you remember Cheng Chongzu of 3B, he was a nobleman from a cadet branch, okay, from a minor branch of the Principality of Qi. But he was so meticulous in the rituals that he would lose all common sense, okay? The problem with Confucianism is that, once again, as I said, rituals mean the ceremonial act, the behavior in ordinary life, the epistemology, and the educational program, okay? But unhappily in China and East Asia, many lesser men would understand rituals in a very close-minded manner, and would think that virtue would be to live, for example, a poor life, and not necessarily going to the exploration of universe, for example, okay? Because in rituals, you have what I would call the small thing, okay? The good behavior, the kindness, the benevolence. But you also have the exploration of the universe in the ritual thing, okay? Because it's include the educational program and the epistemology, okay? And here I would be a bit unfair, maybe, but the kind of pacifism promoted by Gandhi, for example, okay, to be kind and to be poor and to be downtrodden, that kind of bad interpretation unhappily happened in China too.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, in Ben Franklin's autobiography, he's talking about at one point how he was cleverly able to create a situation where the Puritans, who were not allowed by their doctrine to participate in war, he got them to fight in the revolutionary conflict indirectly by creating fire departments and things that didn't exist. So he created a bunch of fire departments. He created these different public services that they were allowed to be a part of, so that they were putting out fires and doing things. So he's like, we got these people to actually play a positive role in the revolution, which was great.
Exactly.
But yeah, no Benjamin Franklin, that wouldn't have happened.
He's sneaky.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's not sneaky.
Humanistically sneaky.
It's skillful. Okay.
Skillful.
Now, yes, it's skillful. Okay, meaning it's part to be a good teacher. Okay,
Yeah.
it's to find the way that the other is capable to accept the things, because he doesn't have a mind as broad as yours.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand his state of being, and you don't try to change him, but you try to create an opportunity, taking advantage of how he is.
Exactly, and to make him understand things in a broader manner.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets him to participate in something bigger than himself, I guess.
Exactly, and you cannot transform his mind so easily, but that kind of things take times. Okay, so you have to invent something. It's a little bit like the noble lie in the Plato's Republic. Okay, sometimes you have to invent a narrative, a storytelling that will bring people to their better self, even if they don't have the power of understanding at the same level than yours.
Isn't that the same thing we're doing, or that the Schiller Institute or LaRouche would do by presenting a big project, which is going to be getting a lot of people to do good work, but not necessarily, it's not them that come up with the idea to do the good work themselves.
Yeah, but you know perfectly that the supreme skill is to make the people believe that the idea comes from them.
Right.
Okay, but that's called education, because education, educare, to bring forth what is within. Okay, in the Meno dialogue, so Socrates manages to make the boy slave to understand, I think, a geometrical problem, because he got in him what is needed to understand that. But Socrates asked the right question to bring forth the answers.
Mm-hmm. Which is, that's the fundamental principle of a good education. Is or a good statesman is ultimately a communicating educator, because if it's true, then the people should want it, even though they might not want a good direction for their society because they're confused. So a Martin Luther King Jr. fighting for desegregation or ending the Vietnam War or ending imperialism, when you listen to their speeches, they're really awakening. They're not just trying to be popular. They're really challenging the ignorance, but in a very loving way that is awakening the truth that was already inside of people, but they weren't aware of it, such that it actually becomes their desire. And when they start taking actions in orientation towards those goals, it becomes more closer to real knowledge inside of them. They become more citizen-like instead of subject-like.
Absolutely.
In a schoolroom, the same thing you get with students who are really learning versus just students who are memorizing or getting behaviorally modified.
Well, precisely, and that's dialecticon. Okay, because going when you ask the question and you got a first answer, a second question, a second answer, and etc. till the 99 question and 99 answer. Well, that's exactly the process of dianoa and dialecticon. And when the person is capable to perceive the universal form, well, that person is uplifted to theoria, contemplation. And here, the word of the teacher is ended, has ended.
Graduation.
Yes, and that is graduation from the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Tao Ying asked when Xun was son of heaven and Gao Ya was minister of crime. Had Xun's father, Gu Sao, killed a man, what would have been done? Mencius answered, Gu Sao would have been apprehended, that's all. Then Xun would not have prevented it. How could he have prevented it? It would have been Gao Yao's mandate. Well then, what would Xun have done? Mencius replied, Xun would have viewed casting away rule of the world like casting off a worn-out shoe. He would secretly have borne his father on his back and fled until he came to dwell by the shores of the sea. There he would have lived out his days in joyful contentment, having forgotten the empire.
Oh, I don't know about that. Hold on. Is he saying
that
this guy should abandon his position in the
Read the side note too.
Read the side notes
and
you will see why.
Okay. This passage shares an issue raised in 5A4 concerning the conflict between filiality and the obligation of the ruler to rule righteously. In speaking authoritatively for Shun, Mencius is exercising historical imagination.
Yes. But here we have a very fundamental problem of education, okay? What is love and what is self-love, okay? It's a little bit complicated, a little story to bring back to the fundamental question. If you are not a theoria, if you did not contemplate the eternal form of truth, goodness, and beauty, it is maybe better for you to go on your personal adventure, to go to those eternal forms, rather than to meddle in politics. Okay, it's a little bit complicated, a little story to bring back to that fundamental truth. And I would like to, since there's something I would like to say, I don't know when to say this, so why not now? Okay, I should have said it at the very beginning, in the first episode, but why not in the last episode? It's as good. Okay, the Mencius is divided in 14 chapters, or if you prefer, in 7 chapters, A and B. Okay. Chapter 1a and b, or chapter 1 and 2, is about the eternal form of truth. 2a and 2b is about the eternal form of goodness. 3a and 3b is about the eternal form of beauty. 4 that we did not read is about history, meaning the destiny of collectivities with an S, right? 5 that we did not read, 5a and 5b, is about society, so collectivity with no S. And 6 that we read, A and half B, is about the human innate goodness, so it's about psychology. Okay, so we start with 1a 1b truth, 2a 2b goodness, 3a 3b beauty, 4a 4b history with the capital S, with the capital H, sorry. 5A, 5B, society with a capital S. 6A, 6B, personality or psychology with a capital P. And chapter 7, A and B, is the summary and the integration of all those things by presenting the step of the development of the mind and of the different epistemological levels with the Chinese jargon. And since I'm speaking mostly to a Western audience, I prefer to use the Platonic vocabulary when speaking of epistemological steps or educational development. But I use a mix of the two because I use the Chinese hexagram, okay? And I use the Platonic words with the figure of the Chinese hexagram.
No, that's really great. That's a good overview, right? That's very, very important. Eventually, we're gonna get a representation artfully done of your invention. The time will come.
Oh yes, the triangle is a kind of synthesis of the educational program. Yes.
Mencius traveled from Fan to Qi, gazing at the heir apparent in Qi. He sighed. The environment of one's home alters one's Qi as the nurturance one receives there alters one's body. How crucial is one's dwelling place? Is this man not a person, just like the rest of us? Mencius said, this prince has a home, horse, and chariot, and clothes much like other people, yet look at him. It is his environment that makes the difference. How much more the difference would be if he lived in the broadest dwelling in the world. The Lord of Lu traveled to Song and called out at the Diaz city gate. The gateman said, this is not my lord. Why does his tone sound so much like my lord's? There was no other reason. The environments in which they dwelt were similar.
Side note, 7A36. While this may initially appear to be an endorsement of hereditary privilege, it is more fundamentally a claim that environment, rather than blood, accounts for differences between people.
Mm.
Or education.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Mencius said, to feed someone but bear no feeling of love is the relationship one would have with a pig. To feel love but not respect is like raising a domesticated animal. Reverence and respect come prior to the giving of introductory gifts. If these feelings are not genuine, one cannot detain a dunzi through empty show.
Yeah, here we have a very grandiose declaration of the worth of the Confucian school, once again having the pretension to teach kings.
Mm.
Right, and that's like we referenced, or he said earlier in, like, I think the second book, or way earlier, that Mencius would put a high value on the king paying the junzi respect and honor, or else he wouldn't even be willing to advise said ruler, because that ruler would not have it within them to actually follow their advice.
As that what you say is very interesting, because at the same time it's very grandiose from the Confucianists, but at the same time it's a question of common sense. If the person to whom you give advice doesn't respect you, it's useless to give him advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or else you run into the situation that Mencius did end up encountering, of rulers that simply wanted to use the prestige of their name, but didn't actually care about the substance of what they were saying.
Absolutely.
Mencius said, a man's looks and figure are tian, endowed, nature. Sorry, read that badly. But only after becoming a sage does a man know how to move his figure.
So only sages, a true sage knows how to
cultivate. You have to cultivate your potential.
Yes, well, it's part of self-control, because many things in our face or our gesture are automatic. Okay, it's true that many things that we do are robotic, and the more you have awareness in yourself, the more your practical expression will be less automatic.
More intentional.
Yes, exactly, more intentional, exactly. Because after all, we humans are creatures of habits, okay? And habits is a nice word for to be automatic.
Well, yeah, and Nick or Julio, or I guess anybody who's engaged in art would probably have something to say about the creating of instincts, aesthetical instincts, through doing technical work and developing a sense of form and motion, or in the case of playing the piano, Cynthia, you have like a certain instinct as well on with the motion of grace in your hands that other people don't have. But even we're just born with our hands. We're not born with the knowledge of how to use them gracefully to get beauty out of a piano. Sorry.
I think the right word is grace, like the graciousness of an older person may be graceful in everything that he does.
Mm-hmm.
Sage, everything will have a reason. Like every movement will not be just a reaction.
Yeah.
Deliberate. The word deliberate that comes to mind.
Yeah, but your first word, intentional, is not bad. Or focus. Focus. Intentionally focused and deliberate.
That's right. Graciously.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, not to say that, and I guess this is again what dovetails the stages of development of Confucius and the Analects. You know, by the time you've gotten to 70 or so, you can obey the will of heaven, and you could obey your heart and trust in your instincts, so that you don't necessarily you're not thinking mechanically through everything intentionally that you're doing as an action. But if somebody were at any point to stop you and ask you, why did you do something this way, you could justify it through reason, though you weren't using like logic every step, saying, okay, this is why I'm I'm moving this way or doing X, Y, or Z.
Yes, thank you for that reflection, but because it's exactly the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the hexagram, okay? When you need to use logic, it's because you are centered in your personality, okay? You're at the outside, you're at the surface of the sun. And when you are using intuition, you're at the center, not the center, but the middle ground of the sun, okay? And when it's universal self or absolute awareness that is at the center of your being, that is absolute form of truth, goodness, and beauty. That is the motivating and the engines of your behavior. So intellect and logic is quite low in the hierarchy. And that's why I never hated Aristotle, because he was centered in the personality. It doesn't mean he was bad, but he was not centered in intuition or in the universal forms.
Right.
King Xuan of Qi wished to shorten the mourning period. Gongsun Chao said, "Isn't a full year of mourning already enough?" Mencius said, "This is like telling a man twisting his elder brother's arm to twist a bit more gently for a while. One should instead teach him to be filial and respectful to his elder." When the mother of one of the princes died, the prince's tutor asked on his pupil's behalf that he be permitted to mourn only a few months. Gongsun Chao said, "How would that be?" Mencius said, "In this case, the prince wishes to fulfill the entire mourning period, but is prevented from doing so. If he prolongs it even 1 day longer than otherwise, it would be an improvement. What I spoke of before concerned a case where nothing prevented mourning the full period, but the king would not do it." Mencius said, "A Junzi teaches others in 5 ways. Sometimes his teaching transforms them like timely rain. Sometimes his teaching perfects their virtues. Sometimes he calls forth their talents so that they can attain their goals. Sometimes he responds to their questions, and sometimes he plants a legacy that can be harvested by future generations. These 5 are the means by which a Junzi teaches."
Yeah, that is a cool paragraph.
Yeah. Yeah, I never thought of the quantization of teaching as as one idea. It's true. You can actually break it down into these specific categories. Huh.
Well, that is called being skillful.
Yeah, that's a keeper. I'm gonna go back to that one.
And the explanation, transforms like timely rain. That's nice. Gongsun Chao said, "The Tao is so high and beautiful that it seems like a climb up to heaven. You simply can't get there. Why not make it seem as though it is possible to follow it and let people strive a bit further each day?" Mencius said, "A great competer does not discard the plumb line because his students are clumsy craftsmen. Archer Yi did not draw his bow less than full because his students were clumsy archers. The Junzi draws back his bow, but does not shoot. Poised to advance, he stands in the middle of the road, and those who are able follow him.
Mm. Can you reread that, Cynthia?
Gong Sun Chao said, "The Tao is so high and beautiful that it seems like a climb up to heaven. Well, you simply can't get there. Why not make it seem as though it is possible to follow it and let people strive a bit further each day?" Mencius said, "A great carpenter does not discard the plumb line because his students are clumsy craftsmen. Archer Yi did not draw his bow less than full because his students were clumsy archers. The Junzi draws back his bow, but does not shoot, poised to advance. He stands in the middle of the road, and those who are able follow him."
Mm. Yeah, over the years, I've had a lot of people say, like, why don't you dumb down your message a bit so that people could understand you? Or you LaRouche would get that a lot as well. And people would always tell the old man, like, well, you're talking over people's heads. Why don't you speak in a simpler way? And no, it's like you want to give people something that's beyond them, right? So that they actually become better instead of just going down to their level and making something easily consumable.
Yeah, exactly. If it's consumable, it's no longer educational.
No, yeah, you don't want to feed them. You want them to learn how to
Yeah.
how to plant a seed and grow some food.
Mencius said, "When the Tao prevails in the world, the Tao follows your every move. When the Tao does not prevail, you must follow the Tao. I have never heard of anyone who used the Tao to follow another."
The side note there is this seems to be modeled on the Analect's formula of timelessness. When the Tao prevails in the world, appear. When it does not, hide.
Unless you've qualified yourself.
Yeah.
Gong Du-zi said, "When Tong Gong came to study at your gate, he seemed to be a person worthy of being treated with ritual propriety. However, you never answered his questions. Why not?" Mencius said, "People who rely on their noble status to question me, or on their sense of worthiness, or on their seniority, or on their accomplishments, or on their past acquaintance, such people I do not answer." Tong Gong failed on 2 counts.
Can you reread that, please?
They're not in search of
Yes.
like knowledge.
Well, maybe the side note will give you the answer because Teng Kong was the younger brother of Duke Wang of Tang. So it was a nobleman of note.
Mm. Okay.
Mencius said, "Those who give up pursuing what must not be given up will give up anything. Those who give up pursuing what must not be given up will give up anything. Those who are grudging where they should be generous will begrudge anything. Those who advance brashly retreat in haste."
Great little nugget of wisdom.
Mencius said, "The Junzi cherishes things but does not treat them with humanity. He treats people with humanity, but not like parents. He loves his parents and treats people with humanity, and cherishes things."
Sorry, just that previous statement reminded me of was it Malcolm X who said those who don't have a cause to stand for will fall for anything?
Well, I don't know if it was Malcolm X, but it was a very deep, wise person that said such a things. Because once again, let's go back to Acacia and Pistis and Dianoia, Dialecticon and Theoria, okay? Because before Dianoia, you will not be capable to have a true capability to decide, okay, to be responsible, okay, because responsibility is to be able to respond, okay. So before you reach to the first level of knowledge of episteme, which is dianoa, because let's not forget, it's not intellectual, okay, it's intellectual, but it's also what I call in order of the soul, okay, and the order of the soul means are you capable to decide for yourself. And if you're not at the level of dianoa, meaning politically of the timocrat, you would fall to the influence of your tribe, of your friends, of your families, of the people you think handsome or cool, and etc., etc. Okay, and in psychological terminology, it's called the personality. Okay, because if you know personality, it comes from persona, and persona is a mask that the Greek actors were wearing in Greek antiquity. So in order to amplify their voice, okay, persona, okay, for the sound, okay, coming from Latin, but amplifying the sound, okay, because they were wearing those masks so that the people far away can hear what they
Oh,
said, because at the time there were no microphones, of
yeah, I
course.
was wondering
Okay,
about that. Oh, I had no
Really?
idea.
The mask amplifies the voice?
Oh,
yes, because if I don't know if you saw a mask, well, nowadays they reproduce the mask that people were wearing, or you see painting on the Greek potteries.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see a big mask, but around the mouth you have a kind of a tunnel that would amplify the sound
oh.
of the voice of the actor.
You just blew Jerry's mind. Jerry's like, wow.
Jerry, I think you can unmute yourself.
No, it makes sense now.
Okay, and psychologically it means the mass that have been put in your psyche by your family, by your parents, by your friends, and most of the time it has been done with a good intention, because psychologically the metaphor between the mass of the actor that would transmit the voice, well, that personality psychologically are formed by the voices of the people having influenced you, okay. So the common thread between the physical mask persona amplifying the voice or the sound is in psychology the voices, the sound of the people having influenced you, and those voices are in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
The witch.
Yes, yes. Okay, so in the past time, when people did not have a deep understanding of psychology, they would say that they were demons that would possess them, okay, and so on. But those demons are simply the voices of people having influenced you in the past. Okay, so that's why in psychology we have the notion of personality. Sorry, Matt, I interrupted.
No, I mean, what you're saying is very rich and important, and it definitely challenges the common presumptions or definitions of what we think is happening with schizophrenia and other things. Like, if you take this Platonic Confucian sort of approach and how you're talking about it, it changes the definitions of common terms in psychology that we take for granted, or possibly even how to treat them.
Exactly. And if you remember, I said on the hexagram, line 1 and 2 corresponding to the democratic man and the plutocratic man is the personality, okay? Because once again, it's the democratic man for Plato. It's the man motivated by affinities, by the influences by his family, his tribe, his nation, and lex talionis, okay? Eye for eye and tooth for tooth. And the second line is the plutocratic man, okay? It's also the personality but a bit superior, if I may say so, because he's capable to smile to his enemy. So he has a little more self-control, okay? That's why most people admire the rich man, okay? Because the democratic man in the Platonic sense understand that the plutocratic man is better than him, okay? And it's true that the plutocratic man is better than him because he has more self-control. Okay, that's why he's capable to amass wealth and influence and power, etc.
Is this where character comes in?
Well, character is a word utilized in modern psychology to characterize what is more inborn in you. Okay, certain persons react very strongly to light, for example, or to loud sounds. Okay, but it means that they are more sensitive, sorry, to sounds or to light. Okay, it's more biological, opposed to personality, which is more something you learn unconsciously and subconsciously, as I explained with the metaphor of the persona, the mask in Greek theater. Okay, so personality, the first two lines, individuality, the third and the fourth line. Okay, so the third line is Thomas Hobbes, okay, the Leviathan. Okay, the man, because Thomas Hobbes, let's not forget, let's be fair to him, he was a philosopher, he was motivated by good intentions. After all, in the Leviathan, which is by itself a Leviathanesque book, he wrote that, well, we have to be realistic if we don't want to live in a jungle. We would have to give some powerful man the right to kill others in order to maintain a certain order. Okay, I simplify very much his book, but it's that. Okay, so he was motivated by the fact that society need a certain order, and that order will not be perfect justice, but it's the appearance of justice. Okay, so the beginner democratic man is motivated by the appearance of justice. So he's better than the democratic man, he's better than the plutocratic man, but he's not in the he's not in episteme yet. Okay, he's not in knowledge yet. He's still at the top, but of doxa, of opinion. And after that, you have the true democratic man motivated by true justice. Okay, and so those two correspond in true psychology to what we call individuality. Okay, in individuality you have not indivi in French. Okay, not divided. Okay, meaning that from the voices that you hear, from your personality, from the people having influenced you, you were capable to choose a path or a goal for yourself. Okay, and because of that path, because of that goal, somehow you manage to organize your inner life in a more orderly manner than the democratic man or the plutocratic man or the beginner democratic man. Okay, so democratic man is the minimum for a society to last in the long run. Okay, because people need at least a little bit of true justice to truly remain sincerely loyal to their nation. Okay, so that's why a society can be in decadence for many generations without philosophical man, or without aristocratic man, make discovery or to create new things. But as long as you have true democratic man, it would be a decadent society, but it would be a working society because there would be at least a minimum of justice.
Mhm.
And if there is no external aggression, because if you have external aggression, of course, that society will collapse.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of where we are now.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's what I think also. Can you elaborate more, Jerry, on that?
Well, it's just when we had that last election in Canada, and I was joking. It was like voting for mediocrities, that there was no ideas. It was, nice people, but it's like you say, it was just democratic man. It was just the appearance of ideas, but there was nothing of substance there. That's kind of what it reminds me of when you talk about it.
Yeah, they are managers. Okay, the modern word for the beginner democratic man is manager. They manage to maintain things.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they manage to keep power, or that's what they're trying to do.
Yes, but one of the laws of power is that if you want to maintain things, you need to grab power for yourself first.
So they grab power and they manage it.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Jerry's joke where you're saying where China has a meritocracy, we have a mediocrity.
No, exactly. And the last two lines, aristocratic man and the philosophical man, is the true self. Okay, is well when you manage to travel in your inner journey to go to dialecticon. Once again, you ask yourself questions, or a teacher asks you a question, but you have fun in that play. Okay, and because you have fun in that play, you keep on that play, and you go into the discovery of the universe, physical universe or mental universe. And that's where the word of the teachers will end. Okay, because the student is becoming autonomous in the operation of reality. And meaning that you bring the student to the dialecticon. Okay, Dianoa, you still learn by heart the mathematical formula and so on. It's the stage of the managers. Okay, but it's not discovery, it's not imagination, it's not creativity. Okay, so in terms of past, you need to bring the person to the play of dialecticon, and all the Platonic dialogues is an expression of dialecticon. Or myotics, to use a fancy word, how to deliver a mind. And of course, at the end of the dialecticon roadmap, well, you will hit the theoria when you will by yourself be in the presence of the three eternal forms of truth, goodness, and beauty. Well, in dialecticon, you are already in beauty and goodness, but at the to take again the metaphor of the well and of the water that you find at the end, that absolute form at the end is truth. Okay, which is theoria, contemplation, which is at the end stage to play with dialecticon. And when Plato was talking of the education of the guardians of the city, okay, he said that certain person would be more in beauty, other more in witness, and other more in truth. Okay, he wouldn't talk of the fierce class. Okay, the democrat, and the creative class, the true aristocrat, and the philosopher king, or the philosophical man. Okay, I removed the word king because I realized lately that if I use king, it might disturb certain person because it reminds them a little bit of a feudal order. So I've replaced it by philosophical man.
Mhm.
Very diplomatic.
Well, I try to be skillful.
Mencius would be happy.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just finish it up, and
Yeah.
then is this the very last?
Yeah.
One question on that last one you read.
Yeah.
Because I'm still confused. It's on 45 there. He says he treats people with humanity. Okay. He loves his parents. Okay. And cherishes things. What does he mean by things? If you cherish thing, it would seem that that's more a higher than treating people with humanity and loving parents.
Oh, I think that.
Does he mean?
Sorry,
Yeah,
go on.
does he mean like truth, beauty, and goodness, that type of thing? I'm sure he doesn't mean like physical things.
Oh yes, he means physical things in the sense that you have to take care of your things.
Okay.
So, in the sense that you have to take care of your furniture, or of your Chinese vases, or your paintings, and so on.
Mhm.
And well, after all, those objects serve us, so we have to take care of them. So maybe the translation "cherish" is a little bit far-fetched. Okay, I would have translated that the Chunzi takes care of his possessions. Okay, and there's a kind of evolution. Okay, he takes care of his possessions, but he would not treat his possession with humanity, which would be a little bit absurd. And after that, he would treat people with humanity, and he would love his parents. Okay, and I would say that it's very Confucian in the sense that there's a hierarchy. Okay, it's only normal that I feel closer to my sister than to my neighbor. It doesn't mean that I hate my neighbor, but I have more common history with my sister than with my neighbor. It's only a question of common sense. And because of the question of duty too, okay, I have more duty to my sister than to my neighbor. Okay, once again, it's a question of common sense. It doesn't mean that I don't have any duty to my neighbor because he's a fellow human being. Of course, I have some duty to him, but not as much to my sister.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
To also be reminded of that story that we just read of the, what was it, Shun? And that, I mean, it's a make-believe story that if you knew that your father was going to kill a man, was that the case?
No.
Shun's,
That he killed
Huh?
a man. That your father killed a man.
yeah, well, if you knew that your father was going to do this, right, that the whole point was to prevent it, right? And the person talking to Mencius was like, what would you do? And Mencius responded, if it was up to Shun, he would have taken his father, lived by the sea, and would have forgotten about the empire, because that's also like filial duty goes so far. But if you're like the leader, right, if you assume responsibility for the people, then you know the people come before that. And that's why Quan was saying, you know, it's not for everybody to accept those high levels of responsibility, because then it requires certain sacrifices.
Yes, exactly. That's the philosophical right interpretation. And I would like to use to add a touch of common sense. Okay, if you are a king, I'm sure that you have enough servants to serve your father.
Yes, that's a very good point. Mencius said, "There is nothing that the wise cannot understand, but they take fulfilling their main task as the most urgent priority. There is nothing that the humane do not cherish, but they take cherishing worthy men as the most urgent priority. The wisdom of Yao and Shun did not lie in knowing everything. It lay in urgently prioritizing their main task. The humanity of Yao and Shun did not lie in loving every person. It lay in urgently cherishing worthy men. A man who cannot perform the 3-year mourning rite for parents, but who is punctilious in performing the 5-month and 3-month mourning for distant relatives, or who takes someone to task for using his teeth to cut his meat while himself gorging on food and guzzling drink, is a man who does not understand priorities."
Absolutely. You see, there's two words that recur often in the school of the scholars: hierarchy and priority. Okay, so hierarchy and priority would bring back to one common concept, which is the decision-making process. Okay, and the decision-making process bring back to wisdom, and wisdom brings us back to the educational process, to different levels, a step of epistemological development. If we use the Platonic word, ekasia pistis theoria dialecticon theoria, eidos.
Yeah, you don't. It's not a question of knowing, like he says, everything. Wisdom is not being a walking encyclopedia. It's knowing how do you prioritize your tasks to accomplish something, to accomplish concrete goals, and in the context of developing that sensibility, you also develop your judgment if you know how to learn how to prioritize what's more important. And I mean, in our day and age too, where we have social media, constant information barrages, so many news websites and everything, right? It's so easy, or even just Netflix and other entertainment, right? It's so easy to diffuse your mind into things of lesser priority and give them more priority than they were, so that they take up more time. And we stunt our progress, we stunt our growth, and thus we stunt our ability to judge and discern. But yeah, the true philosopher is somebody who's always honing that ability to put aside seduction, put on a priority, things that are of high value or important for a goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And the strange things is that if you understand subject, your intellect will be filled automatically without any effort, because you remember easily what you understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not trying so much to remember
You
all
see,
these things.
exactly. So when you prioritize the higher level of epistemological development, you wouldn't get the lower level too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because being endowed myself with an excellent memory, people are always amazed how I remember many things, because I answer because I understand them. Okay, I'm sure that yourself, Matt, you have a very good memory too, not because you read what you read, but because you understand them, and things would fall in order spontaneously.
Yeah, it's not something I think about too much, but it's true that, yeah, when you're trying, like, when you have a goal and you're giving, I know when I'm giving a presentation like today, I was giving a presentation for a show. There were a lot of facts that came out, and I know that if somebody just stopped to ask me this or that as a trivia, I likely would have had a harder time remembering or recovering certain names or information. But when there's like a goal in mind, it sticks, it flows, and it flows in a proper place. It's true. It's an interesting thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you have a thread that would unite all the data on the facts together, that thread will be the factors that will make you remember.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For example, I remember very easily Acacia pistis dianoia, dialecticon and theoria and ios, not because I repeated them 100 times, but because I understand them as stages in the epistemological development. That's all. And because of that thread, I will remember spontaneously.
Mm-hmm. It makes you wonder too about people who could speak many languages. They're very proficient at picking up new languages and how they must be relating to the ideas behind the words of each language that they're able to tap into, because there's obviously certain universal characteristics of all languages. I'm very bad
Exactly.
at that. And I find it just awe-inspiring to see some people just snap right into it. And, you know, within weeks or months, they can like get a practical grasp of a variety of languages. But yeah, they're probably thinking that, whereas I am handicapping myself, I'm sure of this. I don't know fully how to recover from this yet, but by getting stuck on the elemental predicates of the language that I'm trying to remember as like this rule or this word or this, they're thinking about it in a more concept-driven way, a more meaningful, like what's the meaning behind the word that I'm trying to, or the you know, say.
The meaning.
They're speaking with a purpose, you know, not just speaking
Exactly.
like building blocks.
Exactly. Exactly. And if I once again, if I may give an example about myself, I write in French at least with absolutely no fault, and I never learned any grammar because I read a lot. Okay, and because I read a lot, it became spontaneous.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah.
I would say that the new education at least saved me that stupid learning of grammar, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, so you agree then that yes, skipping all of the grammar rules and stuff is not a bad idea if you want to learn a new language, as you just exemplified with your example of yourself. Huh. That would anger a lot of language teachers I know.
Well, especially French ones.
Oh yeah, they would hate what you just said.
Yeah.
It's
have a
actually-
story about languages, if I can.
What?
Just something that I've been reading about Heinrich Schliemann, who discovered coal. He knew at least 15 languages, if not more. But the way he would learn the language, like when he was a child, he fell in love with Homer, the Iliad, and he actually memorized it in German. And then he decided, I want to know it in the Greek. So then he learned Greek and he memorized the Iliad in the original Greek. So when he wanted to learn another language, he would find someone who spoke that language and just had them read the Iliad in that language to him. And by listening to it, he learned that language.
That's amazing.
And he also had a good memory, but that's how he learned 15 languages.
Imagine if a teacher told him, no, that's not how you learn a language.
Yes. Well, I know that it's not easy to solve the question, because as long as the educational process is related to social rewards, there will be always a kind of stress related to those social rewards, okay? The diplomas, the social status that you wouldn't get, etc. So there's no perfect solution for that. And you know that in the Roman society there was a word otium, O-T-I-U-M, meaning the free time. Okay, and normally a free man, only a man can have otium. Okay, in French is oisif. Oisif come from otium. Okay. It means that, but oisiveté in French has a bad connotation nowadays, okay, meaning that you are lazy, that you do nothing, okay, but it was not the original meaning of the Latin word otium, okay. The otium, O-T-I-U-M, is the free time that a free man has in order to educate himself, to read philosophy, and precisely to practice dialecticon theoria in order to attain eidos, okay? And the negation of negosium, you put N-E-G before in front of osium, you have negocium, okay? And negocium, négoce in French is commerce, okay? So doing commerce is exactly the opposite of what a free man should devote himself in his life.
That's good. Very good.
So, of course, it's an ideal, okay? And I'm not nitpicking here, because let's not forget that Plato, I think he was a true gentleman, and he tried to create a class of true rulers, true philosophical rulers. And of course, he was a noble man, okay? Because if he were not a noble man, he would not have the leisure and the culture to create what he created, of course, okay? So I'm not demeaning what he has done, neither what Confucius or Mencius has done. They are practical conditions that we cannot ignore. That's all.
Mm-hmm. I was hoping to maybe look at the 7A40 once more, because it's just quite rich, and there's one part in it I mean I can intimate now with what you would say, Kwan, but still I'd like maybe us to read it again. Cynthia, could you reread 7A40 on teaching and the 5 types of teaching?
Mencius said, Junzi teaches others in 5 ways. Sometimes his teaching transforms them like timely rain. Sometimes his teaching perfects their virtues. Sometimes he calls forth their talents so they can attain their goals. Sometimes he responds to their questions, and sometimes he plants a legacy that can be harvested by future generations. These 5 are the means by which a Junzi teaches.
Now, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't there just be 4? Because if you do those first 4 ways of teaching well, then aren't you implicitly planting a legacy in the form of the students who are developing with that will feed back into future generations? Or is there something that is beyond the first 4 modes of teaching that he's thinking about in that 5th one?
Oh, yes.
There is?
Oh, yes. Okay. I can give you 3 answers. First, if he wants to plant a legacy that can be harvested by future generations, he has to be skillful enough to disperse his disciples or students in many states, okay? So that if there's a disaster, everything would be annihilated if everything is concentrated in one place. That's for
right,
one.
like the case of the Pythagoreans, where the whole school was pretty much wiped out because they were all in the same area, and they were all put in a building and burnt to death. leaving hardly anybody left
Exactly.
on the tradition. Right. Okay.
Exactly.
Good
I
point.
would say that the Pythagoreans were a little bit mystical. I think that they had true knowledge, but since they were very mystical, I think that there was a practical side that was lacking in their school, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So that they fell victim to that kind of situation precisely.
Hmm.
Second, if he wants to plant a legacy that can be harvested by future generations, he would have to identify among his students those who are the best for certain things, and so that they can have sub schools if you want. Okay, that's another way to escape a possible destruction by fate or destiny, or I call fate or destiny things that we cannot predict. Okay.
Mm.
That's second. And three, he would have to, you know very well that if you create a good storytelling or a good narrative, there are more chances that your teaching would be transmitted. Okay, parables. Okay, so one of his tasks is also to try to create, to embody or to put his teaching in parables, in story, so that it would be transmitted for many generations. For example, I wouldn't give an example that maybe you wouldn't think that it's Bandodash, but I would try my best. You know that the ancient Egyptian created what is called nowadays the tarot. Okay, le tarot in French. I don't know if you pronounce tarot in English or tarot. Well, that tarot is a true uh, teaching of true psychology. Okay, so they embedded their deep psychological and philosophical teaching in a game. Okay, so that game can be transmitted over centuries and would become independent of the existence of a physical place or of a lineage of philosophers.
Hmm. So you're saying that there's actually some philosophical concepts that have value embedded somewhere inside of the tarot practice?
Yeah,
Huh. Never thought about
absolutely. Oh yes, oh yes. I don't bring it in this group because I want to stay as much philosophical as possible. So I would limit myself to Plato and Confucius. But if one day you are interested in the tarot, it's a deep psychological school too.
that. Okay, this will be a topic of a future conversation. That's interesting. Okay. Huh.
Or if you prefer to put things nicer, it's the school of epistemological development too.
Whoa.
Okay, that's a totally new idea.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
your clarification on the fifth way of teaching not being contained in the first four is brilliant. These three different aspects are very important indeed. And yeah, it's true. Like none of what you just said is guaranteed in the first four ways. The first four ways of teaching are just really, that's just good common sense practice in teaching. But you've added now the practical aspect of how do you ensure now that this will be a seed that will continuously blossom into the future, or at least not guaranteed, but how can you raise the certainty that it could
Yeah, you
happen?
have to. The first four methods is for one person or one group, okay?
Mhm.
But the fifth one, if you have to imagine things, would protect your teaching and protect your legacy through the unpredictables of fate and destiny.
Mm.
Okay, that's why the tarot, invented by the Egyptian priest, survive nowadays. Okay, even in the time of Alexander, the Egyptian civilization was so decadent and downtrodden that the Egyptian was a Greek colony. Okay, so they were looked down by the Greeks at the time, but their highest teaching has been embedded in the game that has been transmitted 2,000 years later.
All right, so I'm going to ask you. Since you're bringing this up, you got a solid idea about this. All right, so I had the interpretation of tarot that I was always given, or my idea of it, was simply a way of sort of a quasi astrology, predicting tea leaves, your future. I saw it as somewhat antagonistic to free will. I saw it more as a sort of deterministic game as such. To now you're saying that there's actual wisdom embedded that goes back to the continuity of Egypt. In what way? Like, how is it? How are they? Where's the wisdom?
Okay, the wisdom, without entering into details, I will take the Chinese equivalent. Okay, the Chinese equivalent to the Egyptian tarot is the I Ching. Okay, if you accept the wisdom of the 6 line of the hexagrams as the symbols of 6 steps in the epistemological development, while the tarot is the Egyptian equivalent of the I Ching. And as with the I Ching, if you don't understand the I Ching, you can take the I Ching as a kind of divination of magical predictions or all kind of bandash. And the tarot can be understood through that lens of acacia. Okay, you can understand the I Ching or the tarot through the epistemological level of acacia or pistis, or you can understand at the deeper level the I Ching or the tarot at the level of dianoia, dialecticon, or theoria. Okay, it depends of your understanding, and because of your understanding, you will be capable to penetrate the lessons that is embodied by that game.
So, I see what you're saying, and your class.
Albrecht Dürer did sketches for tarot cards. By the way, that means
Who did?
nothing.
Who did?
Albrecht Dürer.
Albrecht Dürer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes, exactly. I think that before going to the old Egyptians, you go to the Renaissance man like Albrecht Dürer, for example. They were all obsessed by those things. Okay, when you mention Newton as a kind of maniac of those things, okay, of alchemy and so on, Newton was an idiot. Okay, but because he did not understand the true wisdom in those things, but you had true alchemists who understood the wisdom and the lessons of true psychology of alchemy and the tarot and so on. Once again, the Chinese equivalent is the I Ching.
And not to be confused with the Tao Te Ching, right?
No, not to be confused with the Tao Te Ching is another thing. The I Ching is the first Confucian classics.
Yeah, Quan did a really good class on that some months back. I can I'll put that as a link in the description box in the YouTube video for anybody listening online who wants to dip into that. Because I guess Yep.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Keep on. Go on before you forget your question. Go on.
Well,
I would not forget
I guess
my
the way
comment.
I would think about the tarot, and I'm ignorant, never having done it myself, was just that you're sort of leaving your destiny up to the deck of cards, and there wasn't a science because you couldn't justify why you were picking up one card over another as you open it up to one character or another that would then be read according to or interpreted according to your needs or your personality or your future. I still don't understand where the science or where the epistemological foundation
precisely, Matthew, you just answered the question, okay? Because what is important is not the cards that you would pick, and what the I Ching, what is important is not the hexagram that you would create. Okay, what is important is that, is it your personality that will read the hexagram or the cards?
Mm.
Is it your individuality that will read it, or is it your universal self that will read it? Okay, so that is the core of the question, and not the hexagram or the cards.
The truth is in the truth. It's not in the cards. The card is just a way to springboard into thinking about, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I hear how you say.
Okay.
Good.
I would use another metaphor that I think that would put that in a deeper level. When you listen to back, the notes are important, of course. Okay, but ultimately the notes are not important, because what is important is that it brings your soul in the space of truth, goodness, and beauty.
Wow.
Right.
That's very provocative statement. But I understand what you're saying.
Yes, because music is the perfect example. Okay, because let's not forget, it's not because you are at the top. Okay, once again, I use the hexagram. Okay, the first two lines is the personality, the third and fourth line, the individuality, and the last two lines at the top, universal self. When you listen to back, the succession of notes and silences, because music is a play of sound and silences, that play will please your personality. And because it pleases your personality, it won't shut up your personality, which is the problem. Okay, and it will bring it to the energy of your individuality. And because of the power of your individuality, it will open the space of truth, goodness, and beauty, which is the top part of your person, called the universal self. It's like the Greek mythological history of Orpheus playing his lyre in the infernals, okay, that he would tame the beasts of the infernals. The beasts of the infernals are symbols or metaphor for the personality. And because of the beauty of the notes and the silences, it will concentrate the individuality in order to open the space of universal self, where is truth, goodness, and beauty.
Hmm.
Okay, this is provocative. Very provocative. Interesting.
Oh, maybe this is a good time because we already brought it up with Jerry, but we can or cut this out maybe at the recording, or it's not a big deal. We're going to be doing the next symposium, which is a very general subject matter right now, but it's literature and history, or like, art and history. And if you wanted to do a class, Quan, you're more than welcome. And yeah, this Orpheus thing is very, very interesting. I mean, even if you wanted to do it on just a philosophical thing, you can do whatever you want.
But sorry, but is the subject art and history, or literature and history?
It's right now it's much more focused on literature and history, but depending on the kinds of things that people come up with.
Oh my God! I mean, literature and history. I already have my subject, the Three Kingdoms.
Oh, you're gonna do Three Kingdoms? Okay, all right.
That's fun. Great.
Okay, because if you know the Three Kingdoms, it's a fun way to know the core values of Chinese civilization. Because Chinese civilization is a civilization centered on honor. Okay, so Chinese civilization is a machine to produce democratic man. And some aristocratic man, of course, but I would say it's a machine to produce democratic man. And The Three Kingdoms is truly a piece of historical novel written in the 14th century AD about events happening 1,000 years before, or even 11 centuries before. That's still valuable in understanding modern China, because modern China at the core is still animated by the values present in the Three Kingdoms.
Good. Very good.
A little bit like Shakespeare, okay? If you read Shakespeare at the core of Shakespeare, it's still Western civilization nowadays. If you read what is truly Shakespeare.
Mhm.
I got a question for the author of the Three Kingdoms, who was, I guess, in the Ming Dynasty.
Yeah.
Do we know anything more about this person, or what else they did?
Well, he was a scholar, but as most scholar of the time, you know, the Chinese scholar of two types at least, okay? And thanks God, the second types exist. Because the first type is the type that would become governor general, prefect, viceroys, and so on. They have their utility, of course, but if they're only that first type, the Chinese civilization would be a boring one. But the second type is the type that would be more devoted to art, to poetry, to literature, to science, to imagination, to the things that would make civilization something truly valuable, and not only the viceroy and the prefects and the governor generals. Of course, those are needed for the foundation of the country, of course. And the Luo Guangzhong, that's the name of the author, is of the second type, obviously. And but a high level second type, okay, meaning that during the time of the Chinese Empire, the scholar are not supposed to read that kind of novels. They are supposed only to read classics and historical documents, but all scholars in China read that novel with avidity and passion.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because I think that it's very very valuable to have the as we've learned from you and how you're teaching Mencius, the geopolitical dynamics of the world in which the individual author is operating within, to understand how they're crafting their identity, so that we can then better understand what role their art or philosophy was to play in a broader mission that they had. So to hear of the actual personality of this figure, who was himself part of the administration and had such influence, that's yeah.
Oh, he was never part of the administration.
I thought he was also part of the government.
In his case, not.
Second type.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but in a certain sense, you're right, Matthew, because some of them had a foot in one word and a foot in the other word. Okay, some of them managed to be in both words, but they had to be very skillful. But that one was only in the second word.
Okay.
And as I said, thanks God we had that second kind, because after all, what is a civilization? You need the foundation to maintain order, justice, and so on, and those are very precious things, of course. But if you don't have plays, if you don't have literature, if you don't have painting, if you don't have poetry, that's not a civilization.
Which is why, as you said rightfully, this last chapter that we've just read is going to be the perfect springboard into Tagore next week, which is that's pure Tagore. That's the man's everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I hesitated a little bit between Tagore and to suggest you something more technical. But I stick with your proposition of Tagore, because I will send you a technical books on the Yoga Sutras, 1,500 pages. You don't have to read it for next week, but it will present you Adi Atma Vidya in the more technical way. And if it amuses you in the future to read that 1,500 pages book, and you can do it. It's an excellent introduction to Yoga Sutra, not Yoga, yeah, Yoga Sutra, exactly, which is the more technical way to present Adhyatma Vidya, and Tagore is the more poetical way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'll make sure that everybody gets a PDF of the, or it's going to be a book on that was scanned on archive.org of Tagore's Religion of Man. It'll, we'll probably not read the entire book. It's not that long. It's only 200 pages, but still, we're probably only going to read maybe the first 5 or 6 chapters. It's just so wonderful to have you helping out with this process, Kwan. I'm sure that we're going to get so much more out of this than if we were individually just trying to make sense of what is being said. And what's great about Tagore too is he's always looking for, because he himself is such a creative poet, he's looking for that creative striving for the universal in every religious group existing. And he treats Zoroastrianism, he treats Islam, he treats Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and he's always looking for where are the characteristics in each one that encourages mankind to leap beyond his limitations to the eternal, and what character, what form does it take. So it's a joy.
No, absolutely. And I take the occasion to say that Gustav Jung did not invent nothing. When he, I use Gustav Jung, Jung, probably you pronounce Jung in English.
Carl,
J-U-N-G. Jung.
Carl Jung.
The psychoanalyst.
Okay, Carl Gustav Jung. Okay, C.G. Jung.
Yeah, Jung. Okay, you pronounce Jung. Okay.
We say Carl.
Perfect.
We call him Carl.
Okay, so Jung did not invent nothing. Okay, did invent nothing. I use personality, individuality, and universal self, which is Jungian jargon, right? But that jargon was not invented by him. Okay, it was invented long ago, millennia ago, in the Upanishad, in Confucius. Okay, in the hexagrams. Okay, etc. Okay, because the eternal journey is precisely the journey from Acacia to Eidos, or from the personality to the universal self.
This is going to be good. All right. Exciting.
Okay, so see you guys next week.
Bye, everybody. Oh, and next week, yeah. So it'll be back to Wednesdays next week. Hi and
Perfect.
bye, Young Hong. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.